we have a saying in sport, what does third place taste like? Cake, right? So, so the thing is that she was very, very committed. But she, for example, learned Japanese so she could understand what the coach was telling her on the mat to her opponent so she could figure out the next move.
Wow.
So, you know, Helen, of all the athletes I've coached in my life, is probably the most detail-orientated athlete that did every single thing. She watched YouTube videos of her fighting. She could understand her moves. One of the biggest myths is that it takes a lot of work to get a good physique. And I mean, Tim Ferriss wrote a book called The 4-Hour Body. Yeah, but I think that 4 hours a week is plenty. Even my top-level athletes, as far as strength training is concerned, it's about 4 hours a week. But there's no messing around when I train, right? The way I explain to people is that you're like an oil lamp. And the flame is the yang energy. So the bigger you can burn the flame, it's great. So people, you know, spend a lot of their energy. But the problem is they don't take care of the oil. That's what we call the yin reserve. The two biggest stressors are related to their mouth. In other words, it's the things we say, and it's what we put in our bodies. And the thing is, that happens is that you never had somebody say, oh man, I was so stressed last night, all I could eat was Brussels sprouts, right? So people will say, okay, I was so stressed last night, I went to 3 boxes of Pringles, you know, 2 kilos of chocolate chip cookies, blah, 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 blah. So we tend to self-medicate with carbohydrates. Why? Because we found out a long time ago that cortisol, which is a stress hormone, is lowered by insulin, right? But the problem with insulin, it's your friend sometimes, but for most of us, it's the enemy, because insulin is the hormone of aging. So the more insulin you make, the faster you age. And controlling the fat loss process is managing insulin. The more you can control your insulin, the better you will do. What I've worked a lot with the hockey players, football players, and I got to make it very simple for them. So I say, ask them a question. I said, ask yourself, did the food you're going to put in your mouth was accessible to a caveman? And I run a test. So I go like steak. Oh yes, a caveman could have that. And then donuts. And they go, ooh. Is there a donut tree? No. Pop. Is there a river? Pop river? So if a caveman had access to the food, you can eat it. So that's a very simple rule to simplify our eating habits. The grains started to get popularized in ancient Egypt. And then what we saw, though, if you look at skeletal remains, is that that's when we start to have degenerative diseases. We used to be much taller, much more muscular when we were living more off a Paleolithic diet. As they land, they say, oh, we're now going to prepare for landing. Well, you should drink about 1.5 liter of water. Why? Because if you ever notice, it's really hard to fall asleep if you got to pee, right? So basically, when you drink a lot, you activate the kidney meridian, which is the energy meridian. So you drink a lot of water. Then this thing you should pull out of your briefcase or your purse is caviar. Caviar is probably one of the best brain-building foods, and you have to reset your neurotransmitters. And the yang neurotransmitters are dopamine and acetylcholine. So you could have caviar, or you could have, if you don't like fish, you could have roast beef. Okay? But it has to be a meat or a fish that contains a lot of tyrosine, because to make dopamine, you need tyrosine. So that would be a thing. And then the second thing I would eat is macadamia nuts, because macadamia nuts contain a lot of levels of choline, and choline will fire up your brain. Wake up early, I do meditation first thing. Then I take my book and I write what I want to be most proud of before I go to bed. Write this down. This is the most important sentence of this interview. So the first thing you put in your mouth in the morning, provided it's food, will dictate the neurotransmitter cascade for the whole day. So that's why I'm a big advocate of the meats and nut breakfast, because it provides you with the raw material to make the proper neurotransmitters for the whole day. And there's lots of research, and from even the early 50s, on the content of your protein and the ratio between proteins and fats and the quality of the protein you ingest in the morning dictates the energy even in the later afternoon. So with children, what they found at Harvard is that if they eat, let's say, oatmeal, or even worse, microwavable oatmeal.
Yeah, or cereal or something.
Yeah, what they find is that when you give them lunch and they have to self-select the food they will eat, they make worse choices if they had a carb-only breakfast. Also, for example, if you give kids pancakes with that fake syrup, French Canadians, we call that telephone pole syrup, because You know, telephone poles don't have sap. So if you have, let's say, telephone pole syrup and then pancakes, kids score 20% less on IQ tests. Wow. Okay, because temporarily their brain's in a fog. Okay, so it's very important to set up your day with the right food. Then typically an hour after I've eaten breakfast, I train.
Okay.
Then shower up, take a post-workout shake, and go to work. Whether I'm at home or I'm on the road teaching, that routine doesn't change. And I think it's really important to have very steady habits in your life. And then this way you never have an excuse for missing out in the gym. You know, you don't miss your dentist appointment, or you don't miss your appointment with your tax lawyer. Well, you shouldn't miss your appointments with your fitness, because you got to take care of your body.